Okay, so here we are, another week of math lessons online. Today we're going to be doing Module 5, Lesson 16. And by the end of this lesson, you will be able to say, I can place whole number fractions and fractions between whole numbers on the number line. The materials you'll need for today's lesson are whiteboard supplies, which is your whiteboard marker, whiteboard eraser, and your whiteboard. And you also need your page 69 and 71 from your workbook and a pencil. So I'm going to go ahead and get my my marker up and ready. Okay. So first I'm going to kind of show you what to do, and then I'll have you do one. So what it is asking is for us to draw a number line with endpoints 1 and 2. So I'm going to do this one for you. Here's my number line. My endpoints are 1 and 2. So that's my start and my end. It wants us to label it in fourths. So I'm going to go ahead and break it in half. Break it in half again. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Now it wants us to label it in fourths. Well, if we have one whole over here, that's actually going to be the same as having 4 pieces out of 4 altogether. So if you remember when we were doing the number lines, 4 fourths is the same as 1 whole. So once we know that, it makes it a little bit easier to just keep labeling. So next would be 5 pieces out of 4. Next would be 6 pieces out of 4, or 6 fourths. Next would be 7 pieces out of 4, 7 fourths. The next would be 8 pieces out of 4, which is 8 fourths. So really, just like before, you're counting up by 1 on the top, and on the bottom, it stays the same because the number line is divided into fourths. Now here's a little bit of a trick to help you know what pieces go on top and bottom. So if you look over here, 4 fourths, if you think 4, and you think of that line as a division, 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So 4 fourths, or 4 divided by 4, equals 1 whole. And it works over here too for 8 fourths. 8, think of the line as a division, divided by 4 equals 2, which is true, it equals 2 wholes. Okay, so that's one way of thinking of it. Because if you have 8 pieces all together and they're divided into groups of 4 or shapes of 4, so if this were a shape, it would be 4 pieces. If you have 8 of them and each of them are divided into 4 pieces, you'll have 2 wholes altogether. Hopefully that helps put a visual with it a little bit. So that brings us to what we're going to do next, and this one I actually would like you to do on your whiteboards with me. So if you need to pause it at any time, please feel free to do so. Start by drawing your number line. And it wants our end points to be 2 and 4. So over here is 2, over here is 4. Now, the first thing you notice is that that is not counting in order. We're missing a number in the middle. So, right here in the middle, I'm going to put in my 3. So now I have 2, 3, 4, and it's counting up correctly. Next, it says, oops. I'm going to go ahead and start that over since I accidentally drew all over. So we have 2 and 4 and 3 in the middle. And then over here it says label it in thirds. So each of these pieces, so between 2 and 3, I need to break it up into 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. And then between 3 and 4, I need to break it into 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. So now, between 2 and 3, it's broken into thirds, and between 3 and 4, it's broken into thirds. Make sure your whiteboard matches mine. If you need to pause it, go ahead. And then we are going to label it in thirds. So how I'm going to help you think about this is over here in the corner, I'm going to draw a circle with a little Y in the middle, broken into thirds. Right now, I have 3 thirds. 1, 2, 3. But I only have 1 whole shape. And down here, I know that I need 2 whole shapes. So I'm going to draw another shape with a Y. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thirds. So I know 2 wholes is the same as 6 thirds. Okay, now I could just keep counting up, but we're going to stick with our visual model. I want to see how much I need for 3 thirds. So I'm going to draw another hole with a Y, which breaks it into thirds. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 thirds. So 9 thirds is the same as 3 wholes. And now I have to do one for 4. So I need a 4th whole object. Put my Y to break it into thirds. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 thirds. And that is the same as 4 wholes. And just like with multiplication, we can also skip count. This is 3 pieces, 6 pieces, 9, 12. So for each whole, that top number is going up by 3. Now let's go ahead and label the points in between. We know that all of them are going to be thirds. So let's start counting up. 6 thirds, 7 thirds, 8 thirds, and then we have our 9 thirds. Keep going. 10 thirds, 11 thirds, and then we end at 12 thirds. Okay? So really the tricky part is figuring out what number needs, or what fraction needs to go above your whole number. Also, I said you could check your work by using that trick. So if we look over here at 6 thirds, 6 divided by 3 equals, if you count by threes, 3, 6. You count 2 times. 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Let's do 9 thirds. 9 divided by 3. Count by threes. 3, 6, 9. You had to count 3 times. 9 divided by 3 equals 3 wholes. And last of all, 12 divided by 3. Count by threes. 3, 6, 9, 12. You had to count 4 times, so 12 thirds is 4 wholes. Okay, so that's kind of 3 different ways to visualize and figure out how to write those fractions for those whole numbers. So that takes us to our worksheet, page 69. On page 69, write your name. While you're writing your name, I'll go ahead and read the directions. Number 1 says, estimate to equally partition and label fractions on the number line. So once again, estimate to equally partition is just their way of saying that you need to break it up as best you can to make sure each piece is the same size. Label the wholes as fractions and box them. The first one is done for you. So they put a box around the fractions that represent a whole. So this is 0 wholes, 1 whole, and 2 wholes. They also labeled the fractions in between, but they did not put a box around them because they're not a whole number. So it counts up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And each of them is over 2, which is halves. And that's what they wanted you to do, was halves. So that's the example. Now it wants us to do thirds. First, I'm going to look 1 and 2. So those are already in order and right next to each other. So I need to break this whole line into thirds, or into 3 pieces. Now, we don't start at 0, so we can't start at 0 thirds. So over here, I'm going to draw my 1 whole broken into thirds. And I know that's 1, 2, 3 pieces. So 1 whole is 3 thirds. Then I can label my next one 4 thirds, 5 thirds, 6 thirds. And if I want, I can check my work. 6 divided by 3. Count by 3s till you get to 6. 3, 6. Had to count 2 times. And that's correct because I have 2 holes. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to catch up with me. I'm going to go ahead and move on to C. So for C, it's asking for halves, and it's got 2 holes, 3 holes, and 4 holes. So first I need to divide each in half. There's half. There's half. I have to figure out how much 2 halves are. So I'm going to draw 2 whole objects, break them in half, and count my pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 halves. I need to put a box around it. And that would be 2 holes. Then I'm going to keep counting up. 5 halves. 6 halves. 7 halves. 8 halves. And remember, it said it wanted you to put a box around all the ones that represent a whole number. And if you want, you can check your work. 6 divided by 2, count by 2s till you get to 6. 2, 4, 6, 3 times, so 3 holes. D is fourths. So I notice that it's 3, and then there's nothing here, and then 5. And I know that missing number is 4, so I'm going to fill that in. Then I have to break my number line into fourths, split it in half, split it in half again, split it in half, and split it in half again. So now each part of my number line between 3 and 4 is broken into fourths, and between 4 and 5 is broken into fourths. Well, first I have to figure out how many 3 holes are. So I'm going to draw 3 holes and break them into fourths. You do not have to write this part if you don't want. You can just watch mine. And now I can count. 4, 8, 12. So to have 3 whole objects, each of them broken into fourths, I'm going to end up with 12 fourths. And then I can just keep counting. 13 fourths, 14 fourths, 15 fourths, 16 fourths, 17 fourths, 18 fourths, 19 fourths, 20 fourths. And remember, it wants us to put a box around all of the fractions that represent a whole number. So we're going to do that for 3 holes, 4 holes, and 5 holes. Okay, if you want to use division to check your work, you can. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. 16 divided by 4 equals 4. 20 divided by 4 equals 5. Last one is breaking it into thirds, and here's what I noticed. It goes from 6 to 9, so I'm missing 7 and 8. So I need to make a line for 7, a line for 8. Now that I have my whole 6, 7, 8, 9, I can look. It wants us to break it into thirds. So I'm going to split each piece into 3. There's 3, there's 3, and there's 3. So between 6 and 7, it's broken into thirds. Between 7 and 8, it's broken into thirds. And between 8 and 9, it is broken into thirds. Now, it wants us to figure out how many, or what is the fraction for 6 wholes. So how many thirds do we need? So I'm going to go ahead and draw 6 wholes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and break each of them into thirds, which I just do my Y shape because that's my little trick for making thirds. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip count. 3, whoop, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So 6 wholes is going to be the same as 18 thirds. And then I just keep counting. 18, 19 thirds, 20 thirds, 21 thirds, 22 thirds, 23 thirds, 24 thirds, 25 thirds, 26 thirds, 27 thirds. So I'm just keep counting up, and I'm just writing a fraction above every line that I drew. Then they want us to put a box around each hole. 18 divided by 3 equals 6. 21 divided by 3 equals 7. 24 divided by 3 equals 8. 27 divided by 3 equals 9. Don't worry if you're not familiar with the division trick yet. We'll work on that in the future. Mostly drawing the picture to help you figure out your whole numbers is what I want you to focus on first. So if there's any questions that you have, just post them in Google Classroom, send me an email, or comment on the YouTube video. I'm going to switch you over to your homework page. Your homework is page 71. So on page 71, please write your name. And we circle number 1, which is the whole page. You're going to be doing something very similar to what we were doing. I'm going to go ahead and start the 10-minute timer. As always, you're just going to have to kind of ignore my kids in the background. So do as much as you can in that 10 minutes. When the timer is up, then you can go ahead and switch to Zern. Remember, today is lesson 16, so you want to make sure that you are caught up with lesson 16. Okay, guys, so you're all set. Go ahead and stop where you're at with your homework. Make sure your names are on it. Keep it in a safe place. Switch to Zern, catch up to lesson 16, and I will see you tomorrow for the next math lesson. In the meantime, you should have another animal video posting at 10 o'clock.